What is going on, everyone? Welcome to another very exciting episode right here on the MIgardener channel. Today, I'm at our local big box store picking up some fruit trees. Now, ideally, I'd go to our local nursery, but our local nursery actually just closed. Believe it or not, that's what happens sometimes when you don't support local. I always say you got to support local, but one person can't do it. So they closed, and that's usually where I got a lot of my fruit trees. So I'm here, I've got to get my fruit trees. I figured I'd make a video out of it, show you some of the do's and don'ts when purchasing fruit trees, because I mean, there's nothing wrong with these. You know, they're definitely a lot of generic varieties, not your most unique varieties that you're going to find. And also, you're not going to really get sometimes the healthiest trees. But we have had some fair amount of luck picking from our local big box stores some fruit trees. We picked out a couple peach trees that are some of our most productive and delicious peaches that we have in our home orchard. So I'm not discounting it. I know a lot of people do go to big box stores to get their stuff. So I really want to just come out here, talk about some of the do's and don'ts, and hopefully give you guys some tips to take with you. Now, obviously, the first tip that I want to give you is time is of the essence. You know, a lot of these trees already have a lot of foliage. I mean, we're talking, look at these pear trees. Okay, pear trees. We are barely into mid-April. Most trees have not yet, as you can see, most trees have not yet leafed out. A lot of these trees are being shipped from warmer climates, warmer zones that have already had a better chance to fruit out. A lot of these are grown in nurseries that are protected. They will fruit out a lot faster. They'll leaf out a lot faster. But you do not want to get a tree that is already leafing. The reason why you don't want to get a tree that is already leafing is because it will put unnecessary stress on a new tree. The first thing you want to do is you want to pick a tree that is dormant. See these trees? These trees that are still dormant, those are good ones. You do not want to get a tree that has been sitting on the lot for a while that is already bloomed out, because it's going to be very stressful to move it into new soil, because the roots just simply won't have the energy and the vigor that they would have had you put them in when they were dormant. There's gonna be a lot of transplant shock, and that will cause a lot of unnecessary stress on the tree, and usually why a lot of times people don't see a lot of growth their first year. They always say your first year is the sleep phase, then the second year is their creep phase, and then the third year is their leap phase. They sleep, they creep, then they leap, and they explode in growth their third year. The next thing I want to talk about is their pruning. You see, a lot of these come right from the nursery here. This is just a red delicious apple. You see here, hack job here. They're trying to promote some side growth, but there's really no structure whatsoever. They've pruned this, and they've pruned over here in an attempt to promote a lot of more balanced growth, but it's really not a great looking tree. Another thing you want to look for is below the graft, all of this growth here. This right here is really not great because it's spending unnecessary energy on putting out a bunch of water sprouts and side shoots that are not going to do anything for you. The next thing you want to look for is really tall growth, stuff that has not been pruned properly. A lot of times people go for big trees. They think big trees are better. Big trees like these that are probably 12 feet tall are not better. In fact, they're actually worse. There's a lot of energy going up to those top, it's windy. There's a lot of energy going up to those top branches there that just is not able to, it's going to put a lot of unnecessary stress on the tree, because again, you're moving them from these small pots, and there's got to be enough energy to go all the way up to the top of those branches. Another thing to consider is the time of year that you're buying the trees. A lot of times, like I said, it's better to buy early, but if you wait, sometimes what can happen is you think you're buying a tree that is dormant, but it's actually dead. You want to see kind of what the average tree is looking like here, and if the average tree is at this stage, you should be pretty much fine. But if all the trees are at this stage and one tree does not have any leaves on it, chances are it's probably dead. And that's just something you want to avoid. Obviously, most stores have a return policy, but once you get it in the ground, you don't want to assume that it's going to come out of dormancy and wait 2 or 3 months, because then you've lost a lot of your season and you lost a lot of time and money. So look at what stage the other trees are in, and that'll kind of give you a good gauge for what is a healthy tree. A healthy tree should be right on par with the rest of them. So a lot of these are a pretty good stage. In fact, this one's actually coming home with me, and I'll tell you why this one's coming home with me. So this tree right here is a Red Delicious. It is just coming out of dormancy. See the flowers there? Flowers are okay. I always say typically the first year you should prune them off. Some people say always prune them off. I just say I go by how the tree looks. This has got a great shape here, and why I really like this is because I'm going to actually prune off this. I'm going to prune off this whole top here and promote a lot of these smaller branches to be my main fruiting branches. Those branches are eventually going to thicken if I do not prioritize this main growth up here. So that's the first thing I'm going to do, and that's why I chose this tree over all of them, is because this one has the healthiest structure. This has a really good sturdy structure to eventually fruit on. You want to plan kind of for the future. You don't want to look at the tree today. You know, it is extremely tall. This tree is probably 13, 14 feet tall, but you know, once I prune it, it's going to be down to about 5 feet or so. And that's a wonderful height to get your fruit tree kind of established. One other thing that you really need to look at is a tree that is curved. You see, oftentimes what can happen is these trees are potted up, but they are not stabilized. And if you put this tree in the ground, that tree will always be curved. The only way you can upright it is if you transplant it like this, in which you have to actually transplant the root ball at a 45-degree angle. The whole thing is off. Do not buy misbalanced trees. I always say, even if the tree has a great shape, a great structure, and it looks like a wonderful, healthy tree, if it's not balanced properly, it's a no-go. Now, I said I'm not going to buy another peach tree, but I did just see another variety that I have not yet had in my collection, so this one's coming home with me. It's got a wonderful structure, just incredible, really healthy structure. This one branch here is the only thing I'm going to prune out because it's really tall and it's not a very good supporting branch. It's going to be a really good young tree that I'm going to get to train, so this one's coming home with me. Beautiful tree, really beautiful structure. All right, and it's getting pretty windy, but the last thing I want to talk about are pollinators. You see, there are something called self-fruitful trees. Those are trees that do not need a cross at all to produce viable fruit or produce fruit for you. If you have something that needs a cross, generally it's recommended that you get another different cultivar. So, for instance, you might have a Granny Smith apple and a Red Delicious apple. Those are two different varieties that will cross. The pollen will cross, and it will actually produce a hardier tree, or a hardier pollen that will actually give you a better fruit set on your trees. Same thing with blueberries, peaches, you name it. Pretty much everything needs a cross. But there are certain trees that are marketed as needing a cross that you really don't have to. With things like peaches, I always recommend having at least one more tree so that you have good fruit set. Blueberries, same thing. I always recommend having at least more than one blueberry. But if you don't have the space for 2 peach trees, I wouldn't recommend getting a peach tree. I think this is a really big mistake, is sometimes we really want something so bad, but we don't realistically have the ability to grow that thing. Whereas a much smarter thing, if you only have space for 1 tree, grow an apple or a pear. The reason is because here in North America and most of Europe, apples and pears are so widespread that you don't need to have 2 trees, because somewhere within a 1 or 2 mile radius, generally, there will be an apple tree. And if it's not a cultivated variety of apple tree, it's usually a crab apple. And crab apples are in the apple family. They will cross-pollinate with your apple tree to produce a lot of fruit. But all the tags on these will say, buy 2, buy this variety, buy that variety. They're really just trying to sell you another tree. Whereas with peach trees, they're not trying to sell you another tree. you need another tree to set good fruit. So just look out for that. And also look out for the self-fruitful varieties. These are varieties that are bred to produce fruit with just one tree. Those are really helpful for the home gardener and can definitely help to reduce the amount of failure that you have in your home orchard. So I really hope that these tips helped you. I hope you get out there. I hope you grow fruit trees. I really do suggest it. They just produce so much pounds of fruit in such a small square footage that it's a worthwhile investment that you just should put in, and it's going to be there for years to come. So I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you learned something new from the Big Box Store. This is Luke from the MIgardener channel reminding you to grow fruit trees, grow big or go home, and we'll catch you all later. See ya. Bye.